which wasn't the case for Gustav. Thanks to the teeth, we know Gustav was born in the 1940s, which means he was at most around 60 years old. For the first 2 or 3 decades of his life until the 70s, nothing unusual happened in the region. But then came 1972. To understand what happened, it's important to know that Burundi has 2 main ethnic groups: the Hutus, who make up the majority of the population, and the Tutsis, who historically held political and military power. In 1972, a Hutu uprising in the south triggered a massive retaliation from the Tutsi-led government. The army began systematically eliminating anyone educated enough to organize future resistance. In a few months, between 100,000 and 200,000 people were killed. Many of the bodies ended up in the rivers, and when you're killing at that scale for logistical reasons and to hide the evidence, rivers become the easiest solution. The Ruzizi's current being high, it carried many of them south right through Gustav's territory. This is where Faye's theory comes in. According to him, this sudden abundance of free meat enabled Gustav to reach his exceptional size. More specifically, those years of feeding on human remains without having to hunt could have broken something in his brain and disconnected the instinct to kill from the need to eat. But there's a problem with this theory. Unlike mammals, crocodiles never really stop growing, but the pace slows down drastically with age. In the first 10 years, a Nile crocodile goes from 1 foot to about 8 feet. Between 10 and 20, they add maybe 50% more, reaching 11 or 12 feet. Between 20 and 30, growth slows to 15 or 20%. After that, we're talking inches per decade. At that age, late 20s or early 30s, a Nile crocodile is already fully mature. The explosive growth phases are over. Under normal circumstances, a crocodile's growth curve flattens around this time. The bodies may have fed Gustav, but they arrived too late to explain his giganticism. Thousands of crocodiles lived in the Ruzizi during those years, all had access to the same bodies, and yet none of them became like Gustav. Unless Gustav was never a normal crocodile to begin with. The growth rates I mentioned earlier are averages. They describe what happens to most crocodiles, most of the time, but averages hide the extreme cases. In any population, a few individuals grow much faster or much larger than the rest. We don't always know why. Sometimes it's genetics or something in their early environment. These cases are rare, but they happen. When you have millions of Nile crocodiles living across Africa, rare stops being theoretical. Somewhere, at some point, an unusually large and fast-growing individual will be born. It's a statistical certainty. Most of these outliers live and die in rivers where nothing special happens. They grow big, they dominate their territory, and nobody outside the local fishermen ever hears about them. But this particular outlier was born at the southern end of a funnel that would channel decades of human violence directly through his territory. Speaking of violence, in 1988, the massacres of Entega and Marangara killed several thousand people. The political context was different from 1972, but for the rivers, the result was the same. Bodies flowed downstream through the same funnel, passing through the same marshlands, although in smaller numbers than in 1972.